Hi everybody, it's Mrs. Marr, and I want to talk to you about the next lesson that we're going to do. It's going to be using Google Drawings, and it's going to be more of an art piece than we've worked on in the past, but it'll be a good way for you to learn a bunch of the tools in Google Drawings so that you can use it from home on full remote days. So um, this is the assignment for this upcoming week. We're going to call it Color Harmonies, and it's going to, it's Color Harmony Designs. Um, it's going to be done whether you're at home or you're at school, so it really won't matter. And what you're going to do is you're going to create an artwork um, of your choice using a specific color harmony. Now, we've been talking about color harmonies for the last few weeks, and based on the worksheets that you did, people seem pretty comfortable with complementary pairs, split complementary, monochromatic and analogous, triadic and tetradic. Some people got, other people, if you don't know, either use one of the others or ask me before you do it. Or look it up. Look back at the two videos that were in an earlier week when you did the color chart. So at any rate, you're going to do a drawing, and it can either be figurative, which means there are objects in it that you're going to recognize. They may not be realistic, but you can tell a flower is a flower, or whatever the shape is intentional. Or it can be more abstract, just shapes, for instance, and lines and patterns, and kind of like a Zentangle maybe. So it doesn't really matter. Things that you absolutely should do. Okay, you want to fill the negative space. So there is no white background in this project. You are going to consider the background. Um, you're going to use a specific color harmony, and you're going to start thinking about how you can translate all of the terms we've talked about in terms of design in other aspects like advertising or layout, or any of the things that we've done. Contrast, emphasis, repetition, balance, any of those terms that you put in your design journal. You could even use letters. We can't change them the way we do in Illustrator, but you can use letters as shapes. You're not necessarily going to write text, um, but you can use the letters as shape if you want to. This is not, however, a repeat of the one where we made the pattern using letters. And I'll show you some examples in a minute. Um, you're not going to do a chart. There should be overlapping, and it should work as a piece of art rather than a chart or a functional graphic design, uh, like an advertisement or anything like that. You might want to use the overlapping to draw the viewer's eye around the page. Okay, it will definitely help with that and make it more interesting. So the other thing you're going to do is create complex shapes and group them together rather than just simple shapes. So you're going to use the Google drawing that's in the assignment, but I'm going to show you a couple of quick examples before we get started. Okay? This was made just layering and grouping shapes together. All right, that's one example. At the top, you're going to put your name, and you're going to put what kind of color scheme you're using. If you also want to put different design concepts like balance and contrast and emphasis, you can do that all along that one thin line at the top. Okay, so that would be one example. Here's another example. That would be figurative in the sense that there's flowers in it. This would be something that's more abstract. Okay, now you might look at that and see a film reel or something, but it's more abstract. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the blank. I'll erase it when I'm done. And we're going to look at exactly what tools you have available. Most people, I don't think, have used this a lot. And there's a couple that you will use pretty regularly. When you get into this tool right here, first of all, this is the selection tool. This one has different drawing tools to it, and this is the shape tool. Within shape, you've got all these standard shapes, some that are a little more involved, some that are three-dimensional. So you can pick from any of those. And you also have arrows, call outs. I don't know how much you're going to use the equations, but they're there if you want to. This program also can do charts and things. So some of the stuff that you've got in here lends itself more to that. So we don't need to use that. Over here, your different tools. I would not worry about elbow connectors. That's if you're making some sort of, family tree type chart sort of thing. But these two tools could work for you. These are shapes that will fill. Okay. If you go to scribble, you can draw a shape and you can change the color of the line up here, but I don't believe you can fill it. Okay. I'm not even sure how you would go about that. No, you can't fill that. However, if you go to a shape that's a circle or any of them, you can fill it. All of a sudden the paint bucket, the fill color comes up and you can change that. Okay. Now another tool that you can change that you have some control over the drawing is the curve tool. So when you use the curve tool, when you click and drag, every time you let go of the mouse, it will curve. And then you want to close it. And once you've closed it, then you can color it. It's got a stroke on it. Let's give it a green stroke, and it's got a fill on it. Maybe we'll give it a dark green. So at any rate, I would try using that curve tool. We're going to use that if we're more remote than not. We're going to use that a lot for the next assignment where I had you bring in a photograph. What else do I want to show you? So I would definitely play with the curve tool. You could use the polyline tool, and that pretty much does the same thing, only it's not curved, it's solid, but it will fill. So if you want something with straight edges and corners, that would be more appropriate for you. Okay. Let's see. Let's go back onto that one. I'm going to go to my selection tool. I can get rid of all of these by selecting them all together. You can click on them individually, hold the shift key, and select more just like we do in Illustrator, and delete. Okay, a lot of the same things. It doesn't have as much necessarily to offer. It works a little differently, has a different intent. But there are some similarities. There are some things you can kind of draw from that we did in Illustrator. You have your text tool here, and you can insert a picture, but which you won't need to do for this. But let's say we're going to build using the curve tool. I want you to think about developing more complicated shapes. Okay? Well, that's not what I wanted. I want to go to the curve tool, this one here, and for some reason I'm just getting squares now in the curve tool. There we go. So say we've got a shape like that. I'm going to take that shape and I'm going to bring it in here. And keep in mind that you can do things the simple way. First of all, you don't need outlines. You can rely on implied edges, just the difference in color or texture. So if I don't want a line, just like in Illustrator, you have the red line that you can put through your stroke or your fill. You can change that to transparent. Okay, so that's the border tool, they call it here, border color tool. And if you make it transparent, it will go away. All right. I can do a couple of things. First of all, let's talk about color for a minute. So I can make solid colors and give it any one of these solid colors. I'm going to move it over so that you can see when I use this menu. I can make it transparent. Okay. I can also go to gradient and give it a gradient. Some are from the bottom to the top, some are radial, linear and radial. Okay. The other thing, just for the record while we're talking about it, is you can go in and you can create custom colors and custom gradients. If you really want to create a custom gradient, you might create a custom color first. So say I have another curve. Okay. I might go into the solids, make a custom color, one that they don't necessarily have. I can also control its transparency. Let's say I want that color. That's not very pretty. Let's put in a different color. Let's say I'm going to use an analogous color scheme on this. Okay, so I'm going to drag this bar over and say I'm going to do from blue towards blue greens and towards red violets. So maybe I'm going to take and make, I don't know, let's say something in here. Maybe I'm going to tone it down a little bit. Okay, so that's one solid color. Now, when I go into my gradients, say I come over here and I go into gradients, and I want to make a custom gradient, I have two choices. I can pick this end or the other end or both. But now that custom color that I made is available to me. So I might start it at that color and then come over here, go back up here, and choose this color to go with it. Okay? And then I can create that custom gradient. Okay? It'll let me play with it in different directions and things like that too. So in either case, if I go to my selection tool, all right, I can Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V, and I can use, just like in Illustrator, I can change the angles. Actually, let's say I'm going to change this angle and put it up here. And then I'm going to take this angle, go completely around the other way, put it over there. This is what I mean by making more complex shapes. We're not going to settle for just creating a shape. Okay. Now I could leave it like that, or for the sake of balance, Control C, Control V, Control V. And maybe I'm going to change the color on some of them. Halfway through these, I could have changed the colors and then made this have multiple colors. Maybe I'm going to go in at about a 45-degree angle and overlap. Because it's a gradient now, some are going to be light where some are going to be dark, and that's going to create a little bit of contrast between each petal. Let's call them petals. And that's kind of a nice thing to have that contrast. And you can control this. And sometimes it's well worth controlling it now, because you could copy this several times. And if that's the case, you want to make sure what you're copying is as perfect as you can get it. Maybe I'll put a center in that too. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to put a, I don't know, let's just put a circle in just so you get the idea. Whoop. And your circle, remember you can hold Shift. And we'll just put that in there. Okay, now that's if I want flowers. Couple things to think about. These petals, if you don't like the way they overlap, I don't have a problem with it at the moment, but if I didn't like the way they overlapped, maybe I want something to come to the front or go to the back. You can go to Arrange up here the order, send to front, send to back. You can do it with the key commands right here, or you can right click on it. So there's 3 ways to get to the order. You can get to rotate here too, by the way, but I could bring that to the front. Okay. In this case, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go over my, I can Control Z that actually. Send it to the back. But more importantly, what I can do is I can select the entire thing, and I can right click and I can group it. Now, if I right click and group it and I Control C, Control V, then I can get more of them. And I don't have to keep them the same. Once I do that, I could change the colors, or I can make them smaller. I could make them longer. Okay. So do not underestimate the power of grouping things and copying them. We could do the same sort of thing. We could do all sorts of stuff. You get the idea with that. Let's see. What else? Something else that's in that menu, if you right click, you can go and put in a background, whether it be solid or gradient. Let's say if we're going to keep an analogous color scheme, let's say we're going to do something lavender. Okay. But you would want to fill your page. You might even take and fill the page with, let's say we're going to take a shape and put it in the background. I would have to move this to the back because it'll end up being in front. There is a way, and I can't think of it at the moment, that you can maybe if you click once, you're going to get the group. If you click twice, you're going to get the part of the group you're clicking on. And if you click 3 times, what it will do is it will give you sort of like anchor points, and you can control those. Okay, so once it clicks on the group, twice it clicks the specific thing you're clicking on in the group, and the 3rd time it'll give you the anchor points that you can adjust. I don't know if that works with shapes too. I don't think it does. It doesn't seem like it does. But in this curve tool, you can do that because you created it, so you control the anchor points on it. Something like this. I can change the order, send backward. Let's see. I'm going to send it all the way to the back. But I guess it doesn't go beyond the background, so that's good. And I can control the shape. I can even probably, if I want to, let's give it a gradient. If I want to give it a custom gradient, say I'm going to go from this light blue to, I don't know, that color. Okay. Now, if I go in to custom here, I can control, I should have probably done this first and controlled the transparency. I'm not sure it will, whoop, no, it just changes the whole color. But you can see that that's a transparency. It's not the full strength of the color. If I want now, possibly, first of all, I'm going to get rid of that black outline. If I go to gradient now, go to custom, it will have that. And I don't know if that will be transparent, because if it is, you could have, you could get a solid. Let's see if we can do this. Come down and make it almost completely transparent. And then if you go to gradient, let's go to gradient and we'll make another custom one. That one's transparent. So now you're going from one color to nothing at all, or a light gradient. Okay, so think about all the possibilities that you can do on the page. Don't worry about being realistic, but really push and play with some of these options. Let me think about other tools. This gives you the thickness of a line. When you do use a line, even an outline, you can control the thickness of the weight of the line. You can create lines. Let me see. Yeah, I think even with the scribble. Let's see if we can do it with the scribble. Okay, so let's say we're going to make it this color. We can control how thick it is. We can make it a dotted line. Okay, so that gives you a lot to play with. And then you can probably, maybe, nope, we can't get the anchor points on that either. Other things you can think about. All right. Oh yeah, and that blue wouldn't be there. That's just the guide. Other things to think about. Say we're in this shape here. Actually, I want to do it on all of them. I'm going to pick a lighter one to do it. And, well, we'll do it with this. You have other things that you can play with over here under format options. For one thing, you can do a drop shadow. So if we open up drop shadow, and it's either checked on or checked off here, you can control the color of your drop shadow. Let's make it black for the time being. You can control the transparency of it. You can kind of see it changing there. Let's make it bigger so you can see it even more. Okay. But you can also change the angle. So you can make it to the left, to the right. Let's get that out of the way for the time being. Whoops. You can control how wide it is. Now you can see the transparency better. It's not very transparent. You bring it out here, it is very transparent. So it's casting a bigger shadow because we made the distance of it larger. And then you can blur it as much or as little as you want. Now we could also change that color. We make it purple. It's going to glow kind of purple. Okay, so the cast drop shadow could be something you want to play with to get some depth. Reflection will literally cast a reflection of whatever object is selected, and you can control how far away that reflection is. See, it's reflecting all sorts of things in here as well, though, so be careful what you select to reflect. I'm going to Control Z that. That's not really the case where you'd want that. What else can we show you? That probably is enough for you to play with for first time around. I cannot stress enough, you want to break up your negative space, you want to fill your positive space, and you want to have some things that are connecting. Like in this case, these objects have this uniting them. We talked about unity and variety. This is uniting this and drawing your eye across the page. These dots are going to draw your eye from one thing to another. Okay? So if you have any questions, you can always get a hold of me through the chat or through email, or, when we meet remotely. In the meantime, think about what you might want to do and have some fun. Just really push the limits and play, and learn these tools, because we may be using them for a couple projects coming up. All righty. Have a good day. If you have any questions, let me know. Bye now.